organized by Sport&EU and the Human Enhancement Drugs Network. We have a very interesting debate ahead of us with high-level panelists, but before introducing them, I would like to make a couple of clarifications. On the one hand, I would like to communicate that the short talk will be rather informal and it will be organized as follows. First, we will introduce the panelists. Then we will address general questions to them. And in the last part of the debate, they will answer your questions. The chat is already up and running, so you can start writing your questions from now on. On the other hand, I want to make a comment about the term amateur. Although it is difficult to find an exact definition of the term in sport in general, the concept usually refers to any athlete who is not professional, does not make a living from sport. But however, in the world of doping, the term can have another, let's say, broader meaning sometimes, and can be used to refer to anyone who does not compete or it is not linked to a sports federation. So these athletes wouldn't be linked to anti-doping regulation normally, although these regulations maybe in some countries are have them bound as well. Therefore, amateur in anti-doping, I would say that usually refers to these recreational athletes. Some may compete, for example, in popular races, others may just focus on training or exercising. We just wanted to make this general clarification, but we also like to add that the discussion will not be limited by this definition. And a last comment, we would like you to know that the session is being recorded. And having said that, let's now give the floor to Jeff Bates from the Human Enhancement Drugs Network. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks, Kane. Hi, everyone. I'm Jeff Bates. I'm a research fellow at the Institute for Policy Research at the University of Bath, which is based in the United Kingdom. And then along with colleagues Katinka van der Veen, Carl Mulrooney and Anders Winter, I helped sort of run the Human Enhancement Drugs Network. I won't say very much about it, but just for those of you who aren't familiar with the network, it aims to improve the evidence base around enhancement drugs and to connect people together who are working in the field. By enhancement drugs, which mean a real broad definition, any drugs used for sort of enhancing physique, performance, cognitive performance, image, mood, and so on. And a big part of what the network is about is sharing experiences, research and views amongst the network. Most commonly, that's been through our sort of magazine, Head Matters. There's past editions of that are available on our website, which is humanenhancementdrugs.com. And there's lots of other materials and information on there, including how you can join the network. So if you'd like to join, we're always interested in having new members. So please do take a look if you're interested. That's humanenhancementdrugs.com. And what we're looking to do is to sort of expand how we're sort of communicating with our members and to hold more events, sort of online events, a bit like today's webinar. Really pleased to team up with Sport&EU for this one today, and we'll be looking to do more sort of similar online sessions in the future. So please do get in touch if that's something that you're interested in. That's enough waffle from me. We're really pleased that our three panelists have agreed to give up their time for us today. It's much appreciated. We're just going to ask them to quickly introduce themselves first, and then we'll hand back to you, Kane, to get going with some questions. As was said, please do use we've got the Q&A function where you can post questions in throughout the session. We'll keep an eye on that and start feeding them in later on. For simplicity, we'll go in alphabetical order. So Eric, perhaps you could introduce yourself and let everyone know who you are.
With pleasure. Thank you very much for the organization and also for the invite. Sadly for me, a very long time ago, I graduated as a master in physical education, and I became a club owner until 2000. And in 2000, now more than 20 years ago, along with some entrepreneurs, I founded a professional association for the fitness industry, and that I run actually still as a president. We also have an independent subdivision, and that's called Fitness BE Vlaanderen. In Belgium, everything is complex in that way. and that association is also recognized and subsidized by the Minister of Sport as an organization for healthy and ethical sports in the fitness industry, in the fitness sector. And also in that area, we work on anti-doping. Also, since 2000, I have been teaching, but now I stopped at the Brussels University and Erasmus Bachelor School.
Thanks, Eric. That's a really good introduction. Luke?
Yes, so thank you, Jeff, and thank you to Human Enhancement Drug Network and Sport&EU for the invite. It's great to be here. I also need to extend my thanks to Professor Mike McNamee, who has given me the platform to develop my academic career. So I am Dr. Luke Cox. I achieved my PhD at Swansea University, where I conducted an ethical analysis of anti-doping policy. There I focused on doping within recreational level Welsh Rugby Union, and I went about and conducted qualitative interviews with doped rugby players. For the last 2.5 years, I've been or have a position as a research associate at KU Leuven, Belgium, where I'm also program coordinator for the Interdisciplinary Centre for Ethics, Regulation and Integrity in Sport. I'm also lucky enough to lecture on the MAISY program, which is a Master of Arts in Sports Ethics and Integrity. And my research interests span applied ethics, anti-doping policy, doping in sport, recreational sports, and harm reduction and iPad use within gyms. Hopefully
Thanks, Luke.
hopefully I'll have a little chance to discuss my research going through the chat a little later on.
Yeah, definitely. We're looking forward to hearing about it. And finally, no surprises, Olivier.
Yes, thank you, Jeff and Ekoin, for the invitation as well. My name is Olivier de Hon. I work for the National Anti-Doping Organization of the Netherlands, Doping Autoriteit. And we obviously we focus on we do all WADA related matters, but we have a prime interest in the fitness industry as well, in the visitors of gyms. I'm currently the Chief Operational Officer. I used to be the scientific manager for about 20 years. And in that role, I have tackled all sorts of doping problems, doping in mind sports, but also gene doping. So most questions were policy related, but always with the individual athlete in mind. I'm looking forward to discussion.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'll pass over to Ekoin to get going with some questions.
Jeff, do you want to start or should I jump in directly? Okay, so for the first question, I would like to know, in your opinion, what is the key current issue on this topic that you think that is the most important for us to think about? I don't know if anyone in particular want to start or.
Yeah.
Eric, go on. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, we all agree, of course, that the use of stimulants, both performance enhancing or appearance, that they are harmful for our health. But we have the goal to combat the distribution and the use of it. So I think, and that is a question that I ask myself, if we need to ask ourselves if talking about doping and using the term doping is the right way to achieve the goal. If we are not creating more opposition than openness to the issue, if we talk that way, perhaps we should look in another direction and more talk about general health and everything that can harm our health and a healthy lifestyle.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Luke wanted to react.
Yes, so I was going to add that I think you're always going to have individuals that are going to use iPads, whether they're gym users, whether they're athletes, I think you're always going to have this problem which is going to be there. And I think perhaps we need to be looking at how we can reduce harm, how we can educate, and how we can raise awareness. I think there is need to try and balance an approach between anti-doping policy and public health. So whether we can find a way where these two different strategies can come together, I think that is one really important move. And then I also just think that there are three different arguments which you could look at this issue for being important in the first place. And I think it's the first thing you have is anti-doping policy. So there's this discussion around ethics and morality. You've got rules to adhere to. You've got then the criminality associated, like Eric has just mentioned, with this supply of these substances. So you've got a range of substances in different countries which are illegal. And there are criminal networks that do make profit from the sale and supply of these substances. And then you've got the element of which it is perhaps illegal to use those substances in different countries. And then the final, I guess, big argument is this public health line. So you've got individuals who are using these drugs who are harming themselves. So if there's a way of bringing those perhaps three different dimensions together, I think that could be a really good and insightful way to look at it.
Olivier?
Yeah, I agree with what most is being said. There's always the reason for morality, and what Luke said, there is a difference between countries. I was shaped by the Netherlands, and in our country it is not prohibited for gym users, for gym goers to use it. And I understand that. Like I said in my introduction, I always look at it from the athlete point of view as well. Yes, the health harms are the main problem here, and not all users are appreciating those or are truly understanding the health risks. But this places the burden on good scientific research. The research should look into that harm, and then we should also agree that maybe, you know, one cycle of one steroid is maybe not that harmful. And I'm not saying that we should then advertise for it, but it may be the outcome of such research. So we need to be realistic and we need to be truthful in our education.
Maybe reacting to that topic of the research, what do you think? Maybe Olivier, you should start, and then Luke and Eric come behind. What do you think that are the main research gaps in the area that should be to be filled right now, maybe on the amateur and doping issue from the research point of view?
Yeah, I think it is a lot about harm reduction, how to achieve it as well. We should involve more the medical professionals here, and we should follow what happens to the health of actual users of doping or iPads or whatever we call it. And there are now some studies going on, some longitudinal studies. I've been waiting for those for a long time, but happily enough, they are there now. And they are very difficult, of course. It is simply not possible for medical professionals to supply these drugs in the dosages that are that are useful for gym goers. So I think the most you can do is follow what is actually happening in real life. But then it becomes increasingly difficult to understand what people are using, because a lot of those substances are falsified, and then you don't know what the dosages are that people are using. So there are many problems in doing such research, but you can do your best to minimize them and then focus on harm reduction. And if I can add one more thing, it's always important to look at the prevalence of doping as well. Even in gym cultures, the percentage might be high. We just had recent research in the Netherlands that it becomes higher when you train more. Well, it's no surprising, but the percentages get really, really high if people start to be competitive in mixed martial arts or positions like that. And then, of course, the highest step is bodybuilding. But there are also a lot of frequenters of gyms that choose not to use doping. So we should not forget those either. You should always show the alternatives to the people.
Yeah, and I think if I were to add to that in terms of research gaps and populations, if you were to look at the current literature now, you'll see perhaps a big focus on male gym users, male anabolic steroid users. However, there is this female population as well, which do use these drugs, perhaps also other stimulants and fat burners as well. But the research within that area is getting better, but there is less research when compared to the male population. So there is that aspect to consider as well.
If I can also add a little thing, I miss studies on how to reach the public. How to get support from the public, how to make sure that practitioners support what we are bringing. That we don't discourage people with the message that we bring. And I think particularly now, recently we see a lot of young people who go to gyms. They start working out, but they have they get ideal images of bodies in their mind by social media. So I'll like to see what influences them, what changes their lifestyle, where they get their resources, who influences them exactly, and how their behavior changes the behavior of others. But I think that is a group population, but that we think we have to focus on, and where I want to see more research on, because yeah, all the rest I think is more had the focus in the past.
May I jump in on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So the social media influence is something I'm particularly interested in, and recently the doping authority from the Netherlands funded a project for KU Leuven. So me and Professor Letizia Pauli, who is the chair of the criminology department there at KU Leuven. So they funded us to go and do some studies on social media influencers, and they were particularly interested in what services social media influencers provided, and the narratives in what they were saying and discussing within their videos as well. So there's two studies which will hopefully be published. They've both been submitted to journals. The first study focuses on the services that these influencers provide. And we found that some of these individuals were providing discount codes to iPad-related shops, so online pharmacies. Some would provide these substances directly. Others provided discount codes to sort of perhaps harm reduction sort of route. So they went or provided blood testing services. And the final point was that they also provided discount codes to TRT, so testosterone therapy replacement clinics. These were mainly influencers based in the US. So that's where we found this research sort of was really focused. But then the second part were the narratives in YouTube videos. So I spent a period of about 6 or 7 months watching a range of these videos and was quite consumed at the time. You sort of start to believe exactly what they say. It does have this effect on you, and it's they're marketed, or they do market themselves in this incredibly sort of appealing and attractive way, and make these substances look quite unharmful, let's say, and quite normal. And hopefully when this research comes out, we've developed this sort of typology of discussions, and there were 3 different types of narratives, some relying just on scientific information and providing scientific sources to their discussions. Some then were just relying on their personal experience and shared quite unusual and experimental dosage and drug patterns. And then the final one was, again, it was personal experience, but it was more usual dose ranges, which you'd probably expect to see in steroid-using communities. So yeah, social media for me is something I find incredibly interesting, in an area that's fast moving. Some of these influencers have upwards of 7 million followers on a range of different accounts. I think that really does sort of hammer home the number of people they could be reaching within their messages and research.
Let me jump a bit from research to the terminology, maybe. Eric, you mentioned that you think that the word doping shouldn't be used. We've been using the words doping, IPED, drugs. Yeah. What's your view on this topic?
Yeah, we have to put ourselves in the mind of the people listening. What do people think about if they hear the word doping? Do they think about the definition, the substances, methods banned by the WADA? I don't think so. Even if we talk about performance and image enhancing drugs, what is the perception of the public when they hear that? I think that creates opposition about everything that they hear about it, or they will not start doing what they want to do just because they hear that things that think they will harm them. If we talk about health and protecting potential users, I think we shouldn't not only focus on strength and appearance stimulants, but we should focus on everything and start talking about healthy lifestyle in general, because also what is legal and illegal. If they hear doping, if they hear stimulants, then they think about illegal things, but there are so many things that are legal that are also not healthy at all. So I think we should open that. Do I have directly an alternative? I don't know, but I always think if we start and we do we take measures or we take actions, that we always have to think about six points. We have to say what we do and what we offer, is that rational and scientifically based. We also have to make sure that we get the public support on it, and that we get the support definitely from practitioners, from these amateurs. We have to get their support. And if you talk directly about something that creates opposition, you don't have that. We also have to make sure that we don't discourage potential practitioners, that by talking about it, I understand everyone who takes stimulants is one too many. So we have to oppose to that, but we have to make sure that we don't discourage people by our actions. We have to promote healthy lifestyle each time. And the sixth thing is that we have to make sure that everything we do motivates and encourages people rather than stigmatize. And I am afraid that if we talk too much about doping, that we stigmatize, and that we take measures that will not end doping use by the ones who are doing it already. We also in the past we talked about labeling clubs and things like that, but have a label doping-free club. Yeah, that's easy for somebody who wants to use. He will go to another one who hasn't a label. So we really have to think about it, that we get support from the public, support from the people. Don't discourage people. We have to do it. And I'm afraid that using too much the term doping it's logical that it's done in the classical sports. That is logical. But if we look at amateur and certainly everything that is non-competitive and recreational, then I think we need another approach. I don't say that we don't have to talk about it. Yes, we have to do that, but you have to look at it in a bigger context. And that is what we are also trying to do. For instance, we have, luckily, we do actions in Flemish. And if we talk about performance and image enhancing drugs, if we look at the acronym in Flemish, it's KUS. And that means kiss in Flemish. So we talk about a KUS campaign, and we go to youngsters, we go to the clubs, and we talk about the KUS campaign. And everybody, and we have the image of a kiss also in it included. So that lowers the threshold, and that makes it more accessible. Then we make it a little bit funny. We started also with a stand-up comedian show that we bring to the clubs, where we bring that message. Not be the academic who talks about doping, because I don't think that that works.
Thank you. Maybe I will jump to the next question. This time, maybe Olivier, you should start. What do you think should be the role of the anti-doping organizations in responding to this issue?
I think we should always pay a lot of attention to it. Of course, again, when you look at the two groups of athletes, we also cater for the competitive athletes within the World Anti-Doping Program, the WADA athletes, maybe we should call them like that. And that's important. But when you look at prevalence, for example, and certainly the absolute number of people who are using steroids and stimulants, the people in gyms are much more important. And I think anti-doping organizations sometimes forget that worldwide. And that's a pity. That's a pity, because you can learn from both groups. The amateur athletes in gyms are rather open about it, relatively open about it. So you can learn from their experiences. And you can use that on the competitive side as well. And what is sometimes a pity as well is, okay, when you tackle a problem like this, you also look at the trade of doping substances. It was already mentioned. And anti-doping organizations generally have the tendency to celebrate doping busts whenever a lot of these anabolic steroids and other related substances, they are seized. But then you have to be honest, those substances were not, most of the times, not intended for competitive athletes. They were intended for the athletes in fitness centers. So even the policy is sometimes abused, I feel. So you should always focus on both and learn from both sides. It also goes the other way. You can learn from the way the policies are directed on competitive athletes, and you can learn from that what works and what does not work, and use that for the amateur athletes.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Luke, Eric, do you want to react on that topic, or?
Well, I think what I would say related to from an anti-doping perspective, if we're just expecting athletes, whether it's elite or recreational level, to follow rules, i.e. the World Anti-Doping Code, we need to make sure they're educated to follow those rules. Stemming from my PhD data, where I spoke about perceptions and knowledge of anti-doping policy, I had a range of athletes on there who said they didn't know what they could be tested for, whether they could be tested at all. And I think if you're subjecting those individuals to rules who don't fully understand them or have any kind of knowledge of them, there's a deep unfairness there. So that would be my sort of line related to anti-doping policy in that sense.
Yeah, I think all anti-doping agencies should work together with as many people as possible, and everything that is illegal is subject to judicial power, and then we talk about detection and punishment. But the moment that we say we're going to protect us from things that can harm us, our health, and that is mandate to the legislative and executive power, so then that means that it's a shared responsibility. And also we as fitness professionals, if we say that we focus on maintaining and improving health, then it's also our responsibility to cooperate, and certainly with anti-doping agencies, because they have the obligation not only to detect and to punish, but also to inform, and definitely we have to work together on that.
Okay. So you feel that somehow this harm reduction approach or prevention approach could fit with traditional anti-doping approaches, or do you think that this anti-doping organization, the ones that we have now, could support this type of having different approaches?
I think definitely the health of athletes and practitioners, that must also always be the priority concern. And if you take that in mind, it may not be limited to control and punishment. Sound information, guidance, that is necessary about everything. And when we only remain on what is illegal, we risk more contaminations and wrong products and actions. So definitely harm reduction should be part of it. Yeah.
Luke, if you wanted to react, maybe, or is it?
Yeah, I was going to add that both would be trying in some sense to protect health. So there is a shared goal there, but the difference is in how each of those policies or strategies try to achieve that goal is somewhat where there is sort of a contest between the two policies. So if we just take some harm reduction measures which might facilitate safer use of a drug, that is going to go against what anti-doping policy is actually trying to do. And that would be where there are contests between these two policies and where it becomes difficult. But I think the health message in terms of trying to protect health, which anti-doping policy does try and do, as well as harm reduction, that is where there is common ground, and it is trying to find ways where you can perhaps find some overlap and create some sort of strategies to try and promote that more generally.
Yeah, I understand, but the thing is, we have to look further than only the substance who are where we now are talking about. If we are generally concerned about health, then we don't have to look only at strength and appearance stimulants. Then we have to look at everything, and we also help people how to use. We have to inform people how to go with alcohol, how to go with tobacco, how to caffeine, even sugar. So even doping substances can be part of that information. I don't think that will be in conflict with the fact that you are fighting it.
Maybe. I think we will start with questions from the audience. I would like to comment also that if you have any ideas about possible topics for follow-up short talks, you can write them in the chat and we will take them into account. Okay, so I give you the floor, Jeff, for the Q&A.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been good listening and also following some of the conversation in the chat. You actually picked up on a couple of the questions already, which has been good. But we've got some more, and a couple firstly that follow on from what we've been talking about broadly around sort of the response, I suppose, to this issue and how we might actually go about sort of addressing some of the problems. To the question from Samuel from Samuel and I won't read all of it out, but essentially saying that this is a difficult problem to tackle. We want how do you speak to young people in particular about this issue of performance-enhancing drug use? What is the best way, perhaps, to approach this population? And particularly thinking around how there are lots of incentives for people, as we know, to use these drugs. What should the incentive be that perhaps we use for them not to use performance-enhancing drugs? Does anyone want to have a response to that?
I would say there's also,
yeah, go ahead, Olivier.
I would say there are also incentives not to use them, because I am convinced that when you take your time, that you have to be clear with that and have to be honest with that. It will take more time to reach a almost similar goal, not the exact same goal, but almost similar goal, but that will last longer. And you feel much more pride because of it. And so there are several issues, the health argument as well. There are several issues that you could tackle, but the incentive of getting it on your own way, on your own strength, are always bigger. One of the former users has explained it to me okay, with these anabolics and growth hormone and stimulants, you get a very, very nice suit, but it's only a borrowed suit. You get it to wear it for a while, but in the end you lose it anyway. And that's a nice way of looking into it, I think. And you have to be realistic. You won't reach everybody with that message, but I think you will reach most.
I can say practically what we are doing. We developed a complete workshop and about the CUS campaign, and we go to the schools. We reach to youngsters from 14 to 17 years. We make it a playful presentation, very interactive, where we focus on the use of anabolic supplements, even slimming drugs, plastic surgery, and so on, lip fillers, and so on. The low risk way in which anyone can come in contact with these substances through the internet, the risks about it, how to, as an alternative, as Olivier said, choosing a healthy lifestyle with exercise and healthy eating to reach the same goals. The illegality and especially the health risks. And we do that all in an interactive and accessible way. And because you can't go to every school, we made a webinar about it now that every teacher, every school can get for free to use it in the classes. We focus more on the physical education teachers because it fits a little bit in their framework, and but everyone can get that for free.
Thanks, Eric. That's great. And Luke, is there anything that you wanted to add on that?
Well, I guess I can draw upon the WADA's values-based education programs. They would tap into what Eric is saying there. But I'm also just looking at Samuel's question there, and I can see that he refers to a individual, More Plates, More Dates, who is a YouTube star, Derek. He was actually one of the influencers that we looked at in our study. What we've recommended within our study is that some of these influencers are perhaps less risky than others. So if there is a way of working with those influencers who do have this sort of social power over their viewers and their followers, to work with them in a good way, a positive way, to try and provide education, awareness and knowledge, then that might be harnessed to do some good.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. It's certainly something that we're quite interested in, is how you can sort of work with people in those networks and who have got a lot of influence to sort of help with these kind of messages. I have a more specific question from Leo Dilhaj. Leo's talking about a specific issue around use of, in terms of abuse of a painkiller, so use of painkillers, and in the German amateur football, but I guess this issue has more wider implications as well. And asking how we might address this type of a problem. So I guess thinking less about sort of gym culture and back to sort of amateur sport. What is the best way perhaps to address this problem? And Leo sort of asked, is it through the clubs themselves? Are there other ways you might do this? Is there a role for sort of policy bodies in this? Again, just open it up, and if any of you would like to respond to Leo.
Can I start? It is a specific problem. It's a well-known problem, and somehow specifically in football, also in our country, but I also know that it's a worry in some endurance events, marathon running and triathletes. It is a difficult issue because most of within football, of course, they are a member of a club most of the time, but they cannot be reached that easily. I think this is a typical example of abuse of medicine. So the main people who should start acting on it are doctors or physicians. But if it is indeed such a big problem, yeah, then maybe some general campaign is called for as well. We haven't done so yet. When we encountered the problem, and it was a small prevalence study in that, we did it together with the National Federation and a few doctors, physicians who are involved with that federation. And then we published articles and increased the knowledge for people why this is a bad thing to do.
And is that something that, you know, Eric or Luke, you'd like to comment on?
I think it's very difficult to find the right partners to reach to the public. You have to get in the media. Perhaps the influencers who now sell other things can get involved in that. But it's something that everybody has to go together, and it's a shared responsibility also from the government. It's a health issue, so there should be investments in there to reach the public. You can't do it as an individual. It's something that we all have to do together. But it's definitely a problem, certainly because the painkillers, we can try and work together with the medical sector, but you can get them without prescription everywhere. So yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah, I haven't really got much more to add. I understand the problem and I've read about it, but I don't have a firm grip of the literature. So I would be stepping out of line if I were to add anything here.
Always welcome to step out of line. That's what these events are for.
So, but it is true, Jeff. If Luke, we had this discussion as well. Should we, as an anti-doping authority, tackle this issue? And we did a step back, but at the same time we saw, okay, it's abuse of medicine, it's a health-related issue. There are ethical issues involved as well. So we didn't want to step away entirely, but we were cautious as for not being the prime messenger here.
So perhaps a follow-up question I was going to ask. I can see there's just been perhaps a couple of questions that have just come into the chat that are on that same topic. Would be, if RESENT isn't something for sort of anti-doping to address, is it more a public health issue? And what type of public health approaches might be effective? For example, in the UK, we've had quite a focus on kind of steroid clinics for sort of our recreational athletes, and kind of coming at it from a much more harm reduction, public health perspective. I know that there have been examples in Europe as well of a similar approach. Is this something that is best tackled outside of the sort of wider anti-doping world, do you think?
Yes, certainly. It also highlights differences, because I know from the first experiences with the clinics in the UK, there was also needle exchange programs, which is something that is completely not a problem in the Netherlands. At least whatever they do, they use new needles all the time. But we are fortunate enough to have two endocrinologists who have a main interest in the topic, and they conduct a lot of research. And yes, that helps us. First of all, it helps us as extra hands, extra knowledge, extra brains to tackle the subject. They are independent from us. A doctor, of course, some people don't see them as being neutral either, because they are on the leash of the pharmaceutical industry or whatever. But these doctors are as neutral as they can be. So I saw them also as a sort of a second opinion. What our minds, our thoughts, are they indeed okay, and are they helpful? But they are an important neutral source of getting more information. That's what when I started this talk, I think, there's always a need for specific and trustworthy scientific knowledge. And we are getting them from those two polyclinics of anabolic steroid users. They are frequented mainly by men, so that's a point that Luke brought forward. We need to they need to see more women as well. And they are mainly looking at anabolics. I would like to see, for them to look into stimulants as well. But this is a great start. It has been going on for a few years now, and they have been truly helpful for us while being neutral and from a certain distance from us.
I wonder, Luke, if you might come in, because I think it was you who said at the start that you talked about how it might be useful to bring together public health and anti-doping sort of perspectives. Do you have any thoughts on this from that perspective?
Yes. So my first line is that it's these sorts of two approaches need to be separated, just in the sense that there is a complete fear of mixed messages. If you imagine the World Anti-Doping Agency, or let's go to a national anti-doping agency, so UCAD, providing needle exchange programs to allow people to use these drugs, and then saying ban, the message is completely conflicted if that were to go ahead. But saying that there is great need for these services. Some research with Dr. Nick Gibbs and Dr. Luke Turnock, we sort of looked at anabolic coaches. So this is the idea where you've got individuals who are recognized within steroid using communities who are providing detailed plans to steroid users to use them more efficiently and more safely. But we do know in the research that you've got a complete range of coaches. So you've got some that probably are very thorough and provide very detailed and good information, and then you've got others that perhaps are more blasé and offer quite low under par data, and that can cause obviously more harm to users. But there is health is the main point of this discussion, I think. And the World Anti-Doping Agency or national anti-doping agencies do want to protect health, but things such as needle exchange programs, I cannot see existing underneath something like the World Anti-Doping Agency for the fear of mixed messages.
Thanks, Luke. That was an excellent answer. Eric, I'll just let you come in if you wanted to on this. We've got a couple more questions. No, that's great. Thanks. I just want to jump up to the first question we had, which has been leaving because it was on a slightly different topic, but it's a good question from Jan, which is asking whether the notion of a recreational athlete is well defined in the World Anti-Doping Code, or should we be looking to improve that definition, essentially to create a consistent definition across different nations? And would that help with any of these discussions? Again, it'd be interesting to know if any of our panelists have any thoughts on that.
I will jump in if no one wants to go. I just don't want to take up anyone. No. I think it's notable that the 2021 World Anti-Doping Code made this addition. So they included the definition of a recreational athletes. If you look at the codes before this, the 3 previous versions, they did not use the term recreational athlete or did not define recreational athletes. This obviously led to a range of problems over sanctioning of recreational athletes. I think there was a case in New Zealand in particular. It's quite a famous case whereby just a membership to a life-saving club was enough for this individual to receive quite a heavy anti-doping sanction. So I don't think it's perfect. I think it's a good addition that they've utilize a definition, but there is more work to be done, I believe, in that area of the code.
Yeah, but here my view is always that they introduced this term looking from it from the competitive side of things, from the Olympic sports, and this is part of a solution. What you are saying, what you were explaining, to have the lower level athletes or whatever, call them recreational. When I talk about gym athletes, yeah, they are not affiliated to a sports federation. They are not subjected to doping control at all. Also not on any level. This is again the terminology that we need to agree on, but that asks for a different approach.
Yeah. That is definitely so. Until now in Flanders, the gym users were also, they could be penalized, they could be controlled, they could be penalized. And even, and that was a very big contradiction, if somebody who does competition and he get penalized, it's logical that they say you can't practice for, do competition for 2 or 3 years, or you can't even do your sports anymore. But they did that. The legislation was like that. Gym users get also penalized by paying a fine, and next to that, sometimes 2-3 years that they couldn't go to the gym. And if you look at the health perspective, that is so illogical that you say first of all we have to say, oh, that's very good that you exercise, that you do that. And if you penalize people by saying now you can't exercise anymore, you give the wrong message. But that will change, but because they are looking to changing the decree, the legislation in Belgium also, and the director of NADO, who is also, I think, now part of the audience, he also said in an interview a couple of weeks ago that somebody who does fitness and uses steroids, that you don't and doesn't do competition, that you don't have to look at them at the same way that you like at an Olympic sporter. You have to guide them and you have to re-educate them, and that is a way to look at it. And of course, I understand that for a national association, for NADO, it's very difficult to do these two things. Then you have to work together with federations like ours, and it's more the responsibility of the government of national health than NADO at that moment.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Phil. Thanks for taking the questions from the audience. I think we got through almost everything, which is great. I'll just hand back to Ikain for the last couple of minutes.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, I think time has flown by, and I think we should stop right now, even if we could continue to discuss it. For today, well, we'll have to finish. We invite you, everyone, every attendee, to send us the questions if you wanted to continue to debate with the panelists. It would be nice to keep on or to have these discussions going on. And if any of you has any idea or possible follow-up talks, as we said, you can write them in the chat now or send them by email also, and we'll try to organize some other short talk in the future. So on behalf of the Sport&EU and Human Enhancement Drug Networks, we would like to thank you very much for your participation and hope you enjoyed the event. We hope to see you again soon. And I think that's all right, Jeff. We just have to wish a nice evening to everyone. Thank you very much to the panelists for being here with us today, and hope to see you all again soon.
And thanks again, and the Sport&EU network for putting this together with us. It's been really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.